What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rusty Nuts Media. Today, working on Project Gooch again. We've got a couple more things on him here now. We've got the shifter cables hooked up. We've got the clutch line ran. We've got this little front support bar for the radiator and all that kind of stuff. So, also I'm gonna be adding on the intake manifold. The radiator and fans are going back on. The intercooler's going back on. A couple different things that have plugs on them. Because I'm gonna start the wiring today. This is gonna be a pain, but I'm gonna start the wiring today. So anything that has a plug on it, I've got to get it back on the car to see where the routing is gonna be, how long the wires need to be, all this kind of stuff. The harness off of the car, this was part of the body harness up here, and also the engine harness are in there. The computer plugs, the fuse box, all that kind of stuff is in there. Side note, I went to the local junkyard. I found a base model 2.4 caliber, which has, I think 99% of the plugs are the same. I've already lined it up on this motor. A lot of them are the same. This is a wiring harness off of a base model. It's missing a few pieces, but this is gonna help. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and start plugging in all of those plugs one by one into this motor. And that way I just free hang all the wires, see where they're at, and then wherever I mount this harness that came off the car, I can just kind of meet up those plugs to those wires. I don't have to do a whole lot of lengthening because I'll have a lot of extra wire off of this wiring harness that I got from the junkyard. It is super hot today. Also, what I've done, I've got a couple parts out here that I painted before I put those back on. So I'm just gonna take it one step at a time today, go real slow, make sure I do everything correctly. I've got a few more things I have to get, like a battery box for the back of the car to mount the battery into. Some wiring, I don't know what gauge to get yet, but I'm gonna get some gauge for the battery to run up to the front, ground it in the back, do a couple other things. So it's not gonna be 100% complete, but I can go ahead and get started today, so that's what I'm gonna do. So this is where I'm at right now. I've got the spare harness right here all stripped down. I've just got it zip tied in certain places to remember where they kind of split off. That's just gonna help me lay it out on the motor, get everything plugged in. Then the harness that comes out of the car and then spider webs out everywhere. I'm gonna be finding a place to mount the computer and also the fuse box, anything like that, inside the car, so I'll be unplugging a lot of that stuff. The best thing I can tell you is take a lot of pictures, take a lot of notes, and use masking tape to go around bundles of wire to let you know this is where this went, this is what this was to. Take it slow. You know, if you're getting confused, stop, go back, make notes of everything, just one step at a time, basically. So what I'm gonna do right now, the paint on all these parts is probably dry. I've cleaned off a lot of stuff I'm putting back on the car. So I'm actually gonna start putting stuff on the car right now, the radiator, the fans, the intercooler, some of the piping. Just get a couple more things on the car. That way I've got all the places where the plugs plug into on the car, and then I can start working with the wiring, running it to where it goes. So that's where I'm at right now. moving right along here. Check this out. Intercooler's on, radiator's on. It's not leaking, that's just from where I kind of washed it off a little bit earlier. Everything in here is really dirty, but it'll get sprayed off before we crank it, I guess. So intercooler's on, all this is on. The old power steering pump, the pump has been deleted, but the bracket is on, the alternator is on. And moving forward with the belts and the pulleys, this is the old tensioner. So we got a new tensioner. As far as the pulley on this one, it's plastic just like the old one, but I got an upgrade to a metal one. And then as far as the lower idly pulley, it's also getting a metal replacement. And then the upper pulley, we've already talked about it. Instead of being smooth, it's gonna be ribbed, so there is that one. So we will be putting these on here shortly. Okay, small update. We got all the pulleys on. Everything's lined up pretty good. As far as the harness goes, I've disconnected the main harness right here from all the spider web of wires over here. So now I'm gonna pull this inside the car through that grommet, and I'm gonna end up mounting the computer and the fuse box inside the car. From there, I'm gonna plug that harness back up to it and then start routing all the wires into the engine bay. I'm also gonna take the harness that I stripped, the spare harness, and start plugging it up in here, leaving some wires hanging so I can kind of see where I wanna meet up to those at, where I wanna route everything to, and see what needs to be lengthened, what needs to be cut, all that good stuff. So I'll see you in just a minute. All right, here's another update on where I'm at. The wiring harness is officially pulled back through the car. It's routed behind the dash, and it comes over to the passenger side. I know it looks like a mess, which it is, but it'll get cleaned up. The fuse box has been mounted where the glove box goes. The computer has been mounted down here in the corner. So right now we're focusing on dividing up the wires. This is half the computer right here. The other half runs out here. We're gonna start seeing which ones go where, which ones need to be lengthened, and kind of line it up on the engine as far as where everything's gonna be ran. I've also got to keep in mind where the exhaust is gonna be ran so we don't run any wires close to it where it'll melt them down or anything like that. And then we also got to keep in mind the vacuum lines where the routing for those are going to be. So it's coming along. It's getting there piece by piece. It's slowly coming back together. So hang tight. I'll give you another update here in just a minute. All right, so one last update for the day. I've got the junkyard harness laid out. A lot of the plugs plugged in and routed where they go. So the next step would be to kind of cut those with a little extra length on them, just let them hang for now. That way everything's where it needs to be. And then one by one, meet them up with all these sensors, lengthen them, shorten them, whatever needs to happen. And then basically for the next couple days, we'll be, cutting one wire at a time, bringing it up, routing it, doing all that, just one sensor at a time, and meeting it up with the rest of it. I might have an update by Wednesday or Thursday on where we're at. And if I don't, it'll definitely be next weekend for sure. But hopefully this thing should be pretty much wired up by next weekend. And then the only other thing we'll have to do is mount the battery in the back, run the wire for that, and just get a couple other things hooked up here and there. And then it'll be time to add the rest of the stuff and go from there. So until next time, subscribe to the channel, like this video if you like it, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.